when you come into contact with your inner you and you can be honest with that, then that's when you unlock that, oh, well, I ain't going for none of that because you know your value. You've stepped into your worth. So when an individual who comes along who has no desire to be, give you any type of worth or respect you, you can see them coming from a long way.
Thank you for joining Discussion to Action.
Just a piggyback off what Mark was saying was that to appreciate your destination. Sometimes we're so interested in right now, that immediate satisfaction, that I haven't been with somebody, because men go, this is both sides, men go through it too. We get lonely, that's why you see men that have high standards. You ever see crazy on the reverse side, you see a man with high standards with a woman that degrades him? It's immediate. It's the immediate, just no different from how it's a woman with high standards and really does good for herself with a man that doesn't treat her good. It's immediate satisfaction. There's something missing there. And I feel like the reality to how to solve that problem, again, it goes back to appreciating destination. Where do you truly want to be at? And what kind of person do you require to need to be, or do you need to be in order to be in that place? Because once we can visualize that and say, I have to be this kind of person, you'll realize the gap in between where you want to be at and where you're at. And you'll realize the people you deal with aren't allowing yourself to get there. When I see myself at the end of the day, 5 to 10 years from now, is this going to be the medium that's going to get me there? Are these going to be the individuals that are going to be in the vehicle while I'm driving to get myself there? Are they going to be the people that are obstacles in the way, jumping in front of the road, trying to have me crash like the Mayhem guy, if you guys know that commercial? That's what I'm thinking about. I'm telling you, it's being serious, because we take for granted the weight of the individuals we have around us. Like I tell Seanay sometimes, karma is a crazy thing. Sometimes you get hit with somebody else's karma due to proximity. So if I'm with somebody and I see their negative and their damage, and I look at where I want to be, where I'm happy and not damaged, I have to look at this individual and ask myself, what kind of weight does this do for me?
Are you related?
No, that's my girlfriend.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. No, well, you said, I didn't want to say it. Y'all together, I didn't know. That's a relationship.
You went through with the safe one.
Well, that's a relationship. Y'all in boyfriend, girlfriend. Okay.
Question, when we had our conversation, you guys said that you agree that women generally do not value themselves. But we did not talk about also, as far as like men and whether men value themselves, because generally it's all about the women when it comes to value. And so I want to know, do men generally value themselves?
I would say the spectrum is the same. We don't value ourselves just as much as they don't value themselves. We just are not emotional creatures. So in the areas where we devalue ourselves, we find, I'd say, a way of, well, if I just don't share anything, you can't know that I don't value myself in these areas because you don't know anything about me. You just enjoy what I provide. Whereas women are emotional creatures, so they're expressive by nature. You feel me? So their insecurities will naturally just ooze out in situations because they're carried by what they're feeling and not always by what they know they should do. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, well, so, okay, so.
It's a thin line.
So for me, it basically boils down to, what are your values? We have to know what your values are. So, because it's easy to say, for me, being a believer in Jesus Christ, it's easy for me to say, no, we don't walk in any values. Because based on what we say is what our values are, the Word of God, and how He tells us to live, we fall short. We choose to fall short. The Word tells us we all fall short daily. That's why we have to repent. Multi-daily, because we fall short throughout the course of the day. Right? But a lot of times we make those decisions to say, all right, I'm going to sit my faith to the side real quick. You know what I'm saying? Because it's 2 o'clock at night and I haven't decided to go to sleep. I haven't decided to read the Word. And I'm going to get on Instagram. I'm going to scroll. I'm going to DM. You understand what I'm saying? But I'm going to go ahead on. I'm going to go out. I'm going to answer that phone call. I'm going to make that phone call. You understand what I'm saying? So we're making these decisions to sit our faith to the side because we value the worldliness. We value the fact that I don't want to be alone right now. The fact that I can't sleep. Whatever the excuse is, I'm talking about men. That's how we move. That's why we end up in your DM at 2 in the morning. That's why we disrespect your parents when we're kids, calling your house at late nights because, I mean, this is real. You understand what I'm saying? But there's, again, going back to there's not a safe place for men to express this.
Yeah.
So we suppress this and we just keep tucking, keep moving on. And then when it starts showing in ugly ways that have nothing to do with what the root of the problem is, no one wants to get to it.
So what would you say is a safe place for men?
So the word says we're healed by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony. So that safe place is someone that we can have a communication with. That safe place is that individual we can be vulnerable to speak what's on our heart, to speak about what happened to me as a child, to speak about all of these different things, because at the end, there's so many conversations that my wife and I have had that weren't, in my understanding, weren't going where they headed. But because of the fact that it's a safe place for me to get open, the conversation, I mean, the three of us, come on. We've had conversations that were like, I didn't see it going here, but because there's trust and it's a safe place to be transparent, then healing comes.
And that's an important thing as well. You made a very good point. Like, for a man, I mean, I'm sure being with your wife, she creates that environment where you feel safe, right?
Absolutely.
And so a man's never going to open himself up to a woman who doesn't feel safe with. So that's an important thing to know.
And we've had to get to this place. This isn't just something that happened. There's been a lot of blood, sweat, tears, prayers, wise counsel. You understand what I'm saying? So, I mean, and she can attest to it, you know what I mean? But
and values changing.
absolutely.
You know,
Because as we become more
changes.
aligned with the word, then we understand that, okay, my perspective was off there.
Just want to ask you really quick, when you say a woman providing that safe place, how does a woman do that for,
Well, for man, I would say like, I think it's different. It's relative to the individual, but I would say for me personally, just making me feel like, no matter what I tell you, it's not stupid. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
you know, you value my opinion, you value who I am as a man, you value what I have to say. I think it's important. And just your whole vibe about you is just going to be very welcoming, I think, and just safe. You know?
One thing I've noticed, and especially in all my relationship dynamics, whether it's with a friend or somebody, I'm seeing or dating, being aware of a sensitive moment. Sensitive moments are always an opportunity for somebody to be open. So if you acknowledge the moment and you let the person know, okay, I can feel this is kind of getting a little bit touchy. I'm letting you know I'm open to hear what it is that you would like to share, but if it's too personal for you, you don't have to share it. That statement eliminates any worry or doubt that you may have had. It lets you know, okay, well, I don't have to share, so I'm not being forced into giving information I don't want to. And this person is letting me know if I do want to share, then they're here to listen and not condemn me for whatever it is. And then the individual providing that has to actually genuinely mean that. You know what I'm saying? Not get the information and then abuse it. The creating of the space means being able to maintain the space when the situation doesn't necessarily warrant it. Because it's cool for me to be open and be warm when you're being open and warm.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you're no longer being open and warm, do I change my mask?
Mm-hmm.
Or am I acknowledged to this sensitive moment and I'm like, okay, I recognize that this has taken a different turn that we don't necessarily need to go, so I'm gonna step back and I'm gonna calm the situation down and I'm gonna give you a minute if you need to, because I want this to be productive. It's not you versus me, it's you with me. And so that again, even in the frustration and the heat, right? Even in the words that I said, if we're in a heated argument and you hear me say that, it's very difficult for you to yell at me right after I say that. Because I've taken away the stress. So now you'll recognize, okay, this is really just me being extra. If anything after that, you really go crazy.
I know that men often say they don't feel comfortable or safe speaking to women because women don't like to hear the truth or things like that. I would say it's a fear of being seen. When you come across a woman who truly has the ability to see you for who you are, because a lot of women can do that. I say it's connected to their sixth sense, their women's intuition. Women have just this thing, and it is what they got, and they just know stuff, and they can look at a man and they can assess things that you haven't said or you haven't done. It's a feeling. And when a woman does that to a man, it puts him in a difficult situation because he's like, well, I know I didn't tell her.
And I know she ain't seen it on me, but she's speaking the truth. So it's frightening at first, especially if you're a person that's not open with yourself. And so you have to be comfortable within yourself to say, okay, well, she's recognized it, it's real, this is a safe place. And not be afraid to share that with them. Because a lot of men, they just get scared.
For as the creation of a safe space between a man and a woman, I would say first I'd have to contradict, I would have to pretty much not agree with what you're saying. I think men are super emotional. That's why we don't share our feelings to the degree that we are. And the reality is that, I'm going to say this best, lack of communication skills on women's side and knowing that men are sensitive. You don't take our sensitivity into consideration when you talk to us in certain manners. So it doesn't allow us to feel comfortable saying anything to you because sometimes you don't know how to speak life into us without putting us down. You can't do both at the same time. You can't, see, we've learned as men that we can be aggressive and not say anything disrespectful to you. We can just say it with a serious tone. But sometimes within the nature, when it comes off in the aspect of when it comes to a woman and a man, and she already feels like he's not doing something and the man is already sensitive to the situation, regardless of how you think about it on the aspect, we are very sensitive. Me personally, we're very sensitive. Very sensitive. So I tell you something that bothers me and you react to it in a harsh way, first off, I'm disrespected. And I already wear my heart here because I can't even tell anybody around me as a man that I'm being sensitive right now. I open the door to you as my woman, as my soft spot because I looked at you as a soft and caring person. And then as soon as I do that, you're like, hiya. Never again. You're never gonna get it. Matter of fact, when I was younger, I'm now gonna start being reciprocating of that matter. And you're not gonna notice it within me because you didn't notice when that's why you have to notice when he's being sensitive, those soft, sensitive moments. But the reality is that men are not honest about being sensitive. They're not honest about how they feel and what bothers them and issues like that. So when it comes to the boundaries of respect, the reality is the conversation, when people don't realize we're all saying the same thing. We both want respect. We both want to be seen. We both want transparency, but sometimes we place gender role on things to dismiss how somebody else feels. You're a woman, so you're supposed to do this. You're a man, you're supposed to do this. And the reality is, most of the time, a man or a woman can't find a good person is because they're hard-headed enough to think there's only one type of man and there's only one type of woman. And your reality is that there's duality in life. There's going to be people that have different things that are multifaceted, like you want a man that can speak to all volumes to you, but he can't be one way then. You have to take a step back and realize, well, if I want a man that's like that, I have to realize that maybe my mentality of that is not what's going to bring him into my life or me as a man. If I want my woman to be multifaceted, I can't want her not to be confident because how's she going to speak into me? It's like, but first I have to acknowledge that I'm sensitive and then be able to open and create the space. So I just speak from my personal opinion with her. I'm just transparent. I'm just like, look, if I feel like honesty is not for my feelings, it's for my spirit. So I don't need you to be honest to make me feel good. I need you to be honest to let my spirit heal. So if you're telling me something on the factor of just making me feel good, I don't want to hear it. I want you to be brutally honest with me because that's how I'm going to grow. That's how I know what's going on around me. That's how the safe haven is created as far as I'm concerned. Because all the sugarcoating, all that's good and dandy to be quite honest, but the reality is I need somebody to tell me if I'm BSing, I'm BSing. I need you to be on me, like, no, you're BSing, that don't make sense. Your potential's here, you need to be here.
But it's the tone is what you're saying, and how you...
It's the language. Not even the tone. Sometimes you're going to speak to me in a serious tone. It's the language. Sometimes you have to understand, that takes a step back, understanding who you're with. Learning how to communicate with that person. There's lack of communication. You need to understand that words, like sometimes, I talk a lot of mess.
But it's gonna take a couple hi-yas before you get there.
Exactly.
You reference that. It's gonna take me saying it a couple times that ain't gonna be so nice to you.
Yeah, but it's my fault for not telling you that though. Again, it's me. It's not you. I have to let you know I'm sensitive. Because if I don't tell you I'm sensitive to your hi-yas, how do you know that your hi-yas are doing that? You don't know it's a hi-ya.
You don't know. But that's where we need to make sure that we're getting to know each other. That's the thing. Because a lot of times there's a difference. Like we gotta really understand what we're doing, and sometimes we're spending time together, and sometimes we're getting to know one another.
I'm a product of a 26-year marriage, and I've noticed the communication within my parents. Their communication style has drastically change
Mhm.
and grown. Praise
Mhm.
God. And my mother had to realize that she had to listen, not necessarily to respond or react or to give a solution, because I think a lot of times as women, when men come to us with an issue, we want to figure it out.
Mhm.
Because you do so much, you go out and you conquer the world and you're fighting the world. We do want you to come home and take off that armor and we want you to feel comfortable, but we also want to fix it and help you fix it because we're partners, we're a team. If my man got a problem, I got a problem. Let's do it. And that's not necessarily what you guys always want. You guys sometimes just want to get it off your chest. And and then I noticed also that my mother always had to make sure that if there was a response that was needed, that she was responding and not reacting. Because there's a huge difference between the two. And making sure that when you're reacting to things, it's normally emotion based. And when someone's coming to you with their heart, they don't need the flesh flash. They need love and God's love in response to that. So they had to develop that and work that muscle and communicate. And like you said, my dad had to be open and honest and say, hey, that's not what I need from you right now. You're not helping the situation. And it makes us step back like, oh, snap. Okay, what can I do to help? Because I didn't even ask you what you needed from me to help.
But generally, I've heard it the opposite, where women actually want the men to sort of listen and not fix it and that type of thing. Also, I want to say too, that whole thing about, well, the men go out and they face the world and that type of thing, it's sort of as if like women don't have their own go out in the world and face what they face.
Not necessarily, but what I'm saying is as an African American male, which is what I'm a product of, there are levels that they do have to go through and things that they do experience that are on something that I can't even begin to wrap my mind around. And it's not degrading what I go through. Or it's not saying that it's more than, it's just saying it's a different aspect. There's something totally different and they're men. It's just a different ballgame. And like they said, they're not emotional creatures. So I have to be sensitive to that.
Well, they are emotional.
No, listen, because we're using the wrong words. Sensitivity and emotion is two different things. I am an extremely sensitive person. I am probably the most emotionally stable person you will ever come in contact with. That's because I allow myself to feel it and process it, but not express it. The emotion is the expression of what I'm being sensitive to. The sensitivity is inward. So if I'm overly sensitive and overly emotional, then you'll always know when I'm being sensitive to something. But if I'm extremely sensitive and I express no emotion, it doesn't mean that I don't feel anything. You're just never going to know that I'm feeling it. But I can still be extremely sensitive. I'm just not expressing it. So there's a difference between the two.
And that's most of us.
And that's most of us. We're not emotional, but we're very, very sensitive.
So
We'll lash out and we'll say something like undertone, like after you do it, we're like, all right, bet. Like,
So
it's real low key, right? All right, bet is not really nothing, but we're like, dang, that really hurt me. But I ain't really about to give nothing to this situation because she gonna know I was sensitive about it. So I'm gonna just say, all right, bet, and I'm gonna move on. But that was the extent of our emotional response.
Did you have something to say? Okay. You have something to say?
Yeah, but again, that just goes back to why we need to make sure we get to know each other. Because it's those simple things right there, because that's a clue.
Absolutely.
You can see that in his countenance. You can see that in his body language, his or her. If we know one another, and then we can speak to that.
Absolutely.
And then we can say, oh, my bad, bro, what's happening? You good? What happened?
That does something different to a person.
And then
when you recognize their quirks, when you recognize when they're trying not to show something and you pick up on it, you're like, well, dang, they really paying attention because I did that on purpose so they wouldn't know, and they still knew.
But then if we don't catch it, then what's happened is they've opened themselves up to a portal of walking in offense.
Yep.
And then everything that domino affects negatively in that spirit of offense.
And that's when you hear people say, you never listen to me, you never pay attention, you don't notice.
Now I can't forget anything.
They start saying all those kinds of things. And you're like, but I do.
Any and everything you've done where you've fallen short just that much, I check that off and I remember it. And I write it down. And the next time I get to blowing up, it's all coming. Because I just decided to walk around with it.
Are you at the strip club?